A cool and gentle wind. Such was the wind of the democratic spring that blew over Morocco, yielding the Constitution of 2011, the first supreme law in the history of the kingdom to recognize civil society organizations as an important partner in the decision-making and public policy monitoring and evaluation processes. The new constitution gives civil society associations the right to submit motions and legislative proposals and the right to participate in public consultations and contribute to designing development programs. Then His Majesty's instructions came, as always, to underscore the need to invest in this national wealth so that civil society associations can become leverage for a comprehensive development scheme.
وبموازاة ذلك يصدر تفعيل التكريس الدستوري لكل من دور المجتمع المدني ووسائل الإعلام والاتصال في البناء السياسي والحقوقي والتنموي بما يمكنهما من النهوض بمسؤوليتهما الفاعلة كقوة اقتراحية وكرافعة لاجئة وشريك أساسي في توطيد هذا البناء.
In implementation of the program of the government aiming to instill the principles of participatory democracy and organize and modernize the non-profit field by strengthening its independence and reinforcing its governance, the government adopted a participatory approach as provided for in the new Supreme Law to achieve these objectives. On the 13th of March 2013, the government announced the establishment of an independent national committee to steer the first and longest national dialogue on civil society and its new constitutional roles.
The government was keen at the very early stage of designing its programme to give civil society a bigger role in the various stages of managing public affairs. With God's blessing, we will launch today a national dialogue on one of the country's most important riches. In this opening session, the National Committee will be appointed, which I am honoured as a member of government to announce that it is chaired by a prominent national figure of the calibre of Mr. Moulay Ismail Alaoui, who willingly accepted, despite his numerous responsibilities, to bear the burden of this trust. Enjoying total independence is, I insist, the key success factor of this national dialogue, of this institutional and founding work.
Initiative du gouvernement, le ministère chargé des relations avec le Parlement.
Calls for participation were thus launched through public and private media outlets, as well as through social media networks. Participation was open to all society stakeholders to involve the greatest possible number of participants for a profound and serene national consultation. More than 60 personalities representing all society stakeholders, government departments and national institutions travelled during this one-year-long dialogue the different regions of Morocco. They visited many regions and cities including Kenitra, Dakhla, Asila, Safi, Fez, Al-Hoceima, Milt, Taza, Oujda, Agadir, Ouarzazate, Beni Mellal, Marrakech, Casablanca, Stat, Rabat, Gelmim and Laayoune. They travelled more than 40,000 kilometres within the country and abroad. Moroccans living abroad were not excluded from these consultations. The National Committee held consultations with many of them in France and Belgium. They answered the call for participation in the national dialogue on civil society and the new constitutional roles.
Civil society associations are invited to put forward proposals on implementing the provisions of the Constitution. Our role as a committee is much like a tape recorder. You press the button, we tape and compile what you've said and hand it to the government, which is required to take it into account. We not only want you to participate in these meetings, but to write your proposals and hand them to us. Each one of you should do all that he or she can for the benefit of their communes and provinces.
All in all, the National Committee held a series of consultations and academic seminars in which approximately 10,000 associations, public bodies and international organizations interested in expanding, organizing and promoting civil society participation took part. These consultations were a truly open opportunity to listen to civil society stakeholders and exchange ideas with and among them, with one objective in mind: contributing to drafting outline bills to implement the provisions of the Constitution.
I want to know if associations that are born with a golden spoon in their mouths, those associations that are showered with lots of money, with millions, will be treated on an equal footing with these poor associations.
There are associations which receive billions while other associations get peanuts.
We should create one single fund that manages the grants from donors.
Associations have become employers who hire people, sign contracts, pay salaries. Yet there is a legal vacuum in this area.
What body should associations file their application with? District officers refer you to the Pasha, who refers you to the prefecture, who says it's the other way round.
There's no network coverage. If we want to talk, we have to be outside. And there are no maternity hospitals.
The participants' proposals, which the National Committee was keen on transcribing with all scientific faithfulness and rigour, are a national treasure and archive of civil society activists' ideas and thoughts and their memoranda, and also the recommendations of international stakeholders, experts and partners. On the first day of the spring of 2014, the National Committee closed the listening sessions, the open dialogue and the academic, regional and consultation gatherings, staging a national closing conference.
The work accomplished over this year and the results achieved are really impressive both in form and substance. We at ISESCO reiterate our support for this experience and reaffirm our willingness to support the Ministry's efforts regarding the implementation of the outcomes of this national dialogue. We plan to disseminate this experience among our member states.
We would like to renew our commitment to provide follow-up to this process and to support similar initiatives for a wider involvement of civil society and citizenry in public affairs. The national dialogue is, to my mind, quite a remarkable idea. I trust that it will strike a resounding chord with many countries. It is remarkable both in its conception and methodology.
I think this is an exercise that is critical for the future of democracy in Morocco. I was very impressed and sometimes very moved by the opinions I've heard over these last few days.
The national dialogue thus came to a close, with so many proposals and recommendations and the conclusions of the most extensive civil society dialogue in Morocco. These recommendations and conclusions concerned the implementation of the Constitution, the organization of the non-profit sector and strengthening participatory democracy by giving all citizens, men and women alike, living in Morocco or abroad, the right to petition and table legislative motions, regulating public consultations, strengthening and promoting associations' transparency and governance, guaranteeing equal access to information and to public funding. In addition to 240 recommendations that are indeed a veritable democratic achievement in Morocco, particularly after the Constitution of 2011. The big closing ceremony was held at the Mohammed V Theatre in Rabat on the 15th of May 2014. A lot of people and personalities attended the closing ceremony, including head of the government Abdelila Benkiran, the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Speaker of the House of Councillors, ministers and members of Parliament, representatives of accredited diplomatic missions, representatives of national institutions and international organizations, and a wide array of political, civil society and media stakeholders from Morocco and abroad. The government honored the chairman and members of the National Committee of the Dialogue on Civil Society, recognizing and appreciating their remarkable role in steering the longest national dialogue on civil society, a national dialogue that was open to national and international stakeholders in Morocco and abroad. A national dialogue that followed an outstanding participatory approach on civil society's new constitutional roles and prerogatives. The national dialogue then came to its final end, as its conclusions and recommendations were handed to the Moroccan Archives Institution, Archives du Maroc, a national collective memory, a 5,000-page long document including annexed memoranda, proposals of associations and contributions of civil society activists.
To conclude, I would like to reiterate my gratitude and appreciation to all of you, to our partners, to the members of the committee who travelled around the country to listen. The dialogue was a success in its starting points, in its participatory methodology and in what it delivered.
This important national achievement was further distinguished by His Majesty's instructions to implement one of the first recommendations of this national dialogue. His Majesty King Mohammed VI thus decreed the 13th of March a National Day for Civil Society, for a strong and active civil society, a veritable partner in the decision-making process.